Okay, perfect. I think we're live, Yuan. Hello, hello. Good morning, good evening from wherever you guys are joining in. My name is Shantanu. I work as a developer advocate at Zencoder. And again, I have Leon with me on the stream. Hi, Leon. Welcome back again after a long time.
Has it been that long? It's good. It's good to be back. No, I missed you. I missed all of you. Hi, everybody.
Awesome. So I think we'll keep it short today, and this is more of a conversation. This is more about me and Leon talking about workflows, talking about how are custom agents and workflows on a different horizon altogether. So, Leon, do you want to do a quick intro, jump on the topic, and maybe then we can talk more about it?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a developer advocate here at Zencoder. What I do is tinker around with the platform all day, kind of like Shotnu too. But the platform keeps changing, keeps evolving. So some of you might be on the Zencoder plugin for IDEs like VS Code and JetBrains IDEs. Some of you might be on Zenflow. I hope you are, because don't get me wrong, I have a lot of love for Zencoder plugin, but I get a lot of kick out of Zenflow, and I think part of the reason for that is what we're going to be talking about here today about the workflows. Um, we I know that we were, planning to talk about workflows in the context of how it helps teams actually standardize their, outputs by sort of standardizing their inputs, right? In fact, workflows are a bit of both, right? Because they're sequential and spread across a bunch of chats, right? They're actually both sort of inputs and shape they are inputs across the board. But because you can actually add steps to the workflow, right? As your scope of work continues, the fact that you can create custom workflows, they can be outputs as well. So it's this really flexible thing, but at the same time, it gives your work structure a lot of like rigidity where you want it, right? So uh, agents are really, really good at at creating code, right? Creating anything, right? If you give an agent an input, it has to give you an output, right? That's how it works. Um, the thing is that like it can go in any direction, and I don't know if you heard recently that, right, like Opus 4.6 is betaing a 1 million context window instead of 200 to
Yeah.
250K, right? And when I was running Opus 4.5, right, or comparable models, I was already having super long running executions, right? I mean, I'm talking about like easily you can come back in a half hour and you still got something running, right? And that's across one chat, one context window. So the question is for these workflows, right? Not only how do you standardize things across teams, how do you standardize what the output is going to be across even an individual scope of work when now you're no longer pair programming, you're no longer watching the execution in front of your screen, right? But you are offloading an enormous amount of decision making, right, to this long running task, to this long running execution. I know that was kind of a lot. Sean, do you want to reel me back in, or should I just keep hammering?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good synopsis about the custom agents and workflow. Just wanted to pick your brains on a couple of questions that the community had, and I also had it along the way. So one again is, I mean, people who have been using Zencoder maybe from the past 6 months or so, who have been accustomed with custom agents and how we have been promoting it across the board, and now we have custom workflows, which is again altogether a different topic to talk about. And now, what's the one major difference and what's the one major hitback that makes custom agents stand out uh, for a
Hmm.
user? And when I say user, I'm talking about enterprises. So,
Hmm.
according to you, what's that one game-changing, thing about custom agents for enterprise?
So I would actually say, actually, this is really, I don't even have to sugarcoat it. I prefer custom workflows over custom agents now, right? And that's coming from the person that, like, when we first launched custom agents, already a while ago, right? So
Yeah.
I have a video out there on YouTube where I break it all down, right? Where I show what you can do with them. And they were the creme de la creme of the paradigm for a long time, right? They were how you scoped, they were how you basically provided those guardrails, that
Right.
decision making of like, okay, this is what you know, this is what you're good at, this is how you're going to do it, right? So I think to have the conversation of custom agents versus custom workflows, you have to really drill down into what is a custom agent, right? Now, okay, like you could also get into like what's an agent in the first place, right? People love asking that question. When I go to dev meetups, always somebody raises their hand to ask the panel that question. How would you define an agent? Right? I think we
Yeah.
all have some like a visceral sort of internal understanding of what it is just based on how we use it, right? So if you want to define it as a basically an LLM with a harness that does work in a way that you want it to, right? Like that's just offhand. Definition can change from week to week, but that like the agentic property is really the session with the LLM where it's capable of executing tools, right? In a sense, right? It's leveraging the power of the LLM to do stuff. Custom agent is providing that agent with a set of you should call it personality or instructions or whatever, but it's a system prompt. A large part of it is the system prompt, right? To define the behavior of that agent beyond simply what the internal weights of the model that the agent is using will already dictate. So when you have a custom agent, we're talking about a system prompt mainly. You can also scope specific tool calls, but that's, you know, relatively niche. Custom agent, you are providing a system prompt specific to the task at hand, right?
Yeah.
So when you're running a custom workflow, what are we really talking about when we talk about a custom workflow, right? So for those of you that have already jumped inside of Zenflow and have, you know, kicked off even a single Jira task, right, in either fixed bug mode or spec and build or full spectrum development workflow, you'll see that when you kick off the task, you have several steps in the workflow, right? And already each one of those steps, right, has a very specific set of instructions to shape and mold the chat that you have, right? So
Yeah.
here already, right, we are talking about something that's kind of similar, right? Like regardless of how you shape it, context is context, right? Inputs are inputs. So the question isn't really like how you're defining it. The question is just at what point you're defining the instructions, right? So with a custom agent, that is sort of like a static set of properties, right? That's sort of a static prompt. What you don't want to be doing is constantly updating your custom agent's instructions, which, by the way, aside from being exhausting, also is kind of nightmarish from an organizational perspective. Because if you've defined a custom agent that's supposed to follow specific procedural guidelines, right, or specific stylistic guidelines, and now it's supposed to be shared and you're sharing it across the organization and you keep updating it, then, well, frankly, unless you're using synced centralized custom agents with a platform like Zencoder, then your custom agents are gonna start to diverge across the team. But even then, right, like even on an individual level, as your tech stack evolves, as what you want to achieve evolves, like you don't want to box yourself in to whatever set of rules you had from either, you know, a month ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago. So it's tricky because I used to like custom agents a lot, right? But now I find myself using custom workflows more because the key difference there is that with the workflow, you are still injecting that guideline, right? That prompt, but it's not based on the personality of the agent, right? You don't need a specialist. Here it is, right? You don't need a
Yeah.
specialist so much as a generalist with very specific instructions every time, right? And I've found that A, the results are better, but also B, the management of that harness is a lot easier and a lot more intuitive, right? Because I'm no longer wondering which agent I need for the job, right? Now it's which workflow, and workflows make more sense per scope of work for me than picking a specific agent. Because nowadays, because these models are able to handle larger scopes of work, right? I find that I feed it scopes of work that touch on more than one specialty at a time, right? I mean, you could at this point feed a model scope of work that's going to touch several code bases at a time, right? Let alone several different types of skills, right? Database designer, UX designer, right? Verification, like so many agents, right? So many different specialties. And so when you divide it across custom workflows, you're actually doing two things, right? You are scoping the instructions that the agent is receiving by the scope of work at hand and not like the specialty. But also, and this is the really important part, and this is what we'll hopefully talk about next time, or maybe Shantanu will probably get somebody else that can actually, stop talking. But like the point here is that with custom workflows, what I haven't even touched on is you are essentially, we're not even really talking about instructions for an agent, right? We're talking about instructions across a group of agents.
Right.
And that's actually the far more powerful paradigm, because now that you're spreading the work across a series of instructions for a series of agents, and those of you that are familiar with spec-driven development and this approach will, know what I'm talking about. But now that you're spreading it across a bunch of agents, you are spreading it across, you're spreading each step across a fresh context window, right? And for each fresh context window, you get much better results and you avoid brushing up against that context window limit. So you get faster work, you get higher quality work, and you don't get that compaction.
Totally, I totally agree on that. Talking about integrations and use cases, right? So one of the prominent use cases from the enterprises is around security and compliances. I mean, that's a top-notch thing that they care about. And apart from that, it's how fast you can ship a product or a POC. So these are the two major use cases that enterprises talk about. So do you think custom workflows are the way to go here in this case, or what do you suggest?
Okay, so first of all, I feel like you set me up to knock them down. Like, yes, and I appreciate that. But also, like, if we want to drill down into that, then like there's several reasons why the custom workflows help like teams ship faster. And I'll go through them really quick, right? Like, one, you standardize the workflow. That means that you can handle large scopes of work because they're broken down into several steps with each step being a fresh context window, right? So you're going to consistently get work out of each step that's more aligned with the prompt because the context window is fresher and more focused, right? So that's already one difference of agents versus workflows at the team level, right? Two, because custom workflows can be configured, right? You can actually get very, very granular across each step in a workflow in a way that it's sort of difficult to be granular with a custom agent, because at that point, for like a significant custom workflow, if it was just all one system prompt from one agent, it would kind of blur the context, right? Because the majority of your actual input would be the system prompt instead of all of the code and research and thinking that needs to happen for a big scope of work, right? But also, and what I really want, like, if you're going to take away anything, right, it's that with custom workflows, it's more rewarding and fun personally, as I think, as an actual developer, or maybe I should say engineer, right? Like, when you split work across workflows, then you have the freedom and the flexibility and the space in each step's context window to follow up on each step, to get nitty gritty, to follow up, to ask questions, right? Like, if every piece of the scope of work right, is well defined, and it only takes up like 10%, 15%, 20% of the context window before that work is done and ready for your review, you have so much more space to be inquisitive, right, and apply knowledge and apply expertise, that it's just a more rewarding and engaging experience. So I think if you are on a professional engineering team, right, you want to engage with the code, right? You want to engage with the architecture of it as much as you can without feeling like you're getting bogged down or like you're getting in the agent's way. And that's the way to do it. And I think we'll focus on exactly what that looks like in the next session, in the next one of these. But I think that's my favorite part about it.
100%. I think I totally agree on that front. I think I'll keep it short, and if you can just maybe show like a small, not a demo as such, but how easy it is just to implement a custom workflow for the audience who are attending this for the first time, and throw some light on that.
You know what? I think, yeah, I'm going to show just super quick.
Sure.
I'm going to pull up what Zenflow looks like, just so you have some frame of reference. Okay. I'll share the entire screen or a window. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So real quick, right? This is, I wasn't even planning on really sharing. So this is just like an actual snapshot of like work, right? Of real work.
Yeah.
And you can see here that this is a workflow, right?
Right.
So I have this is the out of the box full spec driven development flow, right? So I've got my requirements step, my technical step, my planning step, and my project. And well, actually these 3 steps, and then the rest of these are implementation steps that were generated from me collaborating with the agent in each of these steps on the user requirements and then the technical architecture, right? So front loading a lot of that cognitive energy, a lot of that decision making, then distilling those decisions into a set of tasks here in this step. And then I can let the agent run on all of those steps that we distilled into tasks here, right? Or sorry, that we distilled into steps in this planning section. And so what this does is, yes, it makes it a lot clearer what the actual agents are going to do, right? Call it agent, call it agents, depending on how you define agent. But one thing to note here is that A, I'm not using a custom agent system prompt here, and B, I'm also not worrying about prompt engineering. If you take a look at and by the way, I think that that's equally important, right? If you take a look at the top of each of these chats, right? Like, notice my prompts for each of these or like my kickoff prompt is minimal, so minimal. Let's implement this. Let's do this, right? Let's do this. It's all referencing the external state tracking files that were generated from the previous step. And also, while I have your attention, look at my context, right? I've used 10% of the context window for this step, 10% for this step. 11. If I went through all of these, it would easily be over 100% for one context window. And at that point, it doesn't matter how good your custom agent prompt is, right? It doesn't matter how specific you get, because at the end of the day, you're going to come up against that context window limit, and you are going to be frustrated, right? Forget it. Like, yes, the quality of the work is important, obviously, right? The quality will deteriorate, but also it's frustrating when you hit that window, right? For a bunch of reasons. You don't want to lose all that context with a compaction, right? You don't want to see drift. And also, you want to be able to ask questions. You want to be able to follow up, and you don't want to have to feel like you have to decide to make the trade-off between, do I ask questions? Do I engage? Do I be curious? Versus, do I just let it try to squeeze everything in, right? So this is the way.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much, Leon, for throwing light and showing a quick short demo about what Zenflow and custom agents are. So, I'll take some questions, a couple of questions, and then maybe we can close up today. So, I have one question from Prince. Workflow splitting up the context window is a game changer. Fact that Zenflow has this workflow built in is amazing. Oh, I think it's a feedback. Okay.
Great question. Yes.
Indeed.
And also thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
people are
no,
loving
it's
it. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's dope. Actually, if you want to hit me up direct, there's a lot of cool stuff that you could actually do, or just tune in next week or whenever we have the next one of these part two. But that's just out of the box behavior. You can do some pretty crazy stuff when you like start to drill down into the capabilities.
100%. And custom workflows are super fun. I've been playing along with it, I think, for a couple of weeks, and built out some really cool stuff. Shipped out really cool enterprise stuff, and just doing a sneak peek about one of the videos that I was working on. So I did an entire overhaul refactoring of a legacy Java code to the modern one using a custom workflow, and it was amazing. The results were super amazing and efficient. So a couple
Yeah.
of use cases we worked on, and it's the outcomes are pretty amazing. So as Leon just mentioned, in the next couple of webinars, we'll be talking about doing a demo about these things that we just spoke. And yeah, I think that's mostly it for today. In the next one, we are having one of our guests from Swan, GetSwan.ai. It's again an AI agent for helping you reach out to people on LinkedIn. We have the CEO of Swan coming in. We'll ask a bunch of questions, talk about how CEOs are essentially using AI agents to scale their businesses. But yeah, before we close down, Leon, any small final note, or are we good to say goodbye?
My small final note is that look, if you haven't tried it yet, then try any system that lets you split up these the work by steps, right? Just try a few tickets and then try to go back to a chat based approach, right? To a custom agent approach, and you'll see that going back is a little jarring because it is so fundamentally different structuring your work this way. So if you get a chance before the next webinar, then just get your hands on it or something like it. Try this approach, and then you'll have a much better idea of what I'm talking about. And then next time we can jump into how you can get really fancy and creative with some custom workflows.
100%. Once again, thank you so much, Leon, for jumping in and talking more about custom workflows and how enterprise can essentially benefit from them. Yeah, thanks
100%.
everyone for
Thanks,
joining
Shandy.
in.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks everyone for joining in, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.